Imagine the stench of decay in your nostrils. A bloated carcass, weeks old, flies buzzing, flesh turning black. Now imagine a man, barefoot, covered in dirt, slicing into that rotting meat and tearing it apart with his teeth and smiling. But here's the twist. This wasn't desperation. It was tradition, preference, survival strategy. Forget what you thought you knew about clean eating. Our ancient ancestors had a taste for the rotten, and their stomachs were stronger than steel. What if everything we thought about the caveman diet is dead wrong? There are bones buried in the earth that whisper secrets, not of kings or battles, but of dinner. In a cave in Ethiopia, archaeologists unearthed a pile of animal remains. Antelope, zebra, even elephant. But what startled them wasn't the size. It was the smell, or rather the story those bones told. Deep cut marks, but not fresh. The meat had clearly decayed before it was butchered. That was the first clue. For decades, we pictured early humans as heroic hunters, spears in hand, roaring over fresh kills like wild predators. But the truth, hidden in scavenger marks and layers of dirt, tells a darker tale. They weren't just hunters, they were scavengers. Rotten meat was dinner, and they didn't just survive it, they preferred it. To us, rot is disgusting, dangerous. We run from mold, from slime, from meat that's gone gray. But imagine a world before refrigeration, before cooking fires were consistent, before food safety had a name. What do you eat when you have no choice? And then realize maybe it makes you stronger. Recent studies suggest Homo erectus, one of our early ancestors, didn't chase live prey. Instead, they trailed predators like lions or saber-toothed cats, waiting until the beast had eaten its fill, then sneaking in to take what was left. What was left was horrifying. Sun-warmed carcasses, exposed organs, festering muscle, and they ate it again and again. Not because they were desperate, but because it worked. The ancient tools found near these bones weren't made for killing. They were made for scraping, slicing, cracking, perfect for dissecting already dead animals. And as we now know, the marrow inside old bones, that's where the calories are. Fat, nutrients, survival. So maybe the caveman wasn't a lion. Maybe he was a vulture. But he wasn't weak. He was strategic. He was patient. And he was hungry. Out in the open plains, the rules were simple. Kill or wait. And if you couldn't kill, you learned to wait very well. Picture this. A pride of saber-toothed predators tears into a mammoth. They feast, rip, fight each other for the best bits. Hours pass. The sun bakes the carcass. Flies come. The big predators move on, bellies full. That's when our ancestors stepped in, not with fury, but with flint tool and timing. They watched from a distance, knew when the cats had finished. They walked in not to conquer, but to salvage. The stink, irrelevant. The maggots, protein. The bones, treasure chests of calories. To early humans, a bloated corpse wasn't disgusting. It was opportunity. And here's what's fascinating. This wasn't random. The bones we found show consistent patterns. Marrow bones split just so, skulls cracked open with precision, tooth marks from hyenas layered under slicing marks from human tools. It's a timeline in decay, and humans were always last, yet always benefited. Why does this matter? Because it rewrites everything. We often say humans rose to dominance because we were clever hunters. But what if our real superpower was being patient scavengers? What if strategy, not strength, put us on top? And think about this. Rotten meat has fewer competitors. Lions, leopards, hyenas, they all prefer fresh. But rot is for the brave. Rot is for the adapted. Early humans began building tools not just for hunting, but for breaking down corpses, for extracting marrow, for slicing into flesh that had already started to slip into goo. They didn't just tolerate it, they were built for it. Their stomachs evolved to handle the filth. Their minds learned the rhythm of decay. They didn't fear rot. They understood it. They respected it. Now imagine it up close. The sun hangs low over the savanna. A young Homo erectus crouches by the bloated corpse of a zebra. The skin peels away with a sound like tearing canvas. Flies swarm. His stone blade scrapes along slick greenish muscle. His fingers are caked in blood and rot. And still, he eats. He doesn't flinch. This isn't fear. It's ritual. This is what his tribe has done for generations. And the science backs it up. Studies of ancient human stomach acidity show something shocking. Our ancestors had one of the most acidic digestive systems in the mammal world, rivaling vultures and hyenas. That wasn't an accident. That was evolution's response to constant exposure to rotting, bacteria-rich meat. Our bodies learned to survive what others couldn't. Even more shocking, the bacteria in that meat may have helped them. Rotting meat is filled with microbes, and some of those microbes predigest nutrients. Think of it like nature's slow cooker. Enzymes begin breaking down proteins. Tough sinew turns soft. Bones become easier to crack. By the time early humans dug in, nature had already done half the work. And then there's the cultural angle. Across surviving hunter-gatherer groups today, we still see signs of this behavior. Inuits traditionally eat aged walrus meat buried in permafrost. Some African tribes ferment meat underground. In parts of Australia, goanna lizards are left to ripen before being eaten. These aren't accidents, they're deliberate traditions, which means the ancient diet wasn't random scavenging. It was a system, a choice. Rot was a flavor, a tool, a tactic. So the next time someone talks about the paleo diet, like it's just grilled steak and kale, remind them, the original caveman meal, it was warm, smelly, crawling with life, and absolutely essential. We modern humans are fragile. Leave chicken out for more than an hour, and we're racing for the fridge. Eat undercooked meat, and we're praying to survive the night. But for early humans, rot wasn't risk. It was routine. So how did they do it? How did they survive meals that would hospitalize us today? The answer lies deep in the gut, in the acid. Modern studies of primates show something unusual. Most apes, like chimps or gorillas, have gut acidity levels similar to other herbivores. But humans? Our stomach pH is insanely low. It's acid on par with vultures. That means our ancestors' stomachs could dissolve raw meat, bacteria, even parasites, like a biological incinerator. It was nature's way of neutralizing danger, and it didn't happen overnight. As early humans shifted from plants and fresh kills to scavenging, decaying meat, the digestive system had to evolve. The more bacteria they consumed, the more natural selection favored those with stronger, more acidic stomachs. If you couldn't handle the rot, you died. If you could, you passed that ability on. It's a brutal filter, but an effective one. And here's the irony. Modern humans still carry that trait. Our stomachs are more acidic than nearly any other mammal, even though most of us will never need to digest rotting flesh. We're walking fossils of a carnivorous past. So the next time your gut burns after a chili dog, just remember, it once handled zebra carcasses marinated in maggots. But acid wasn't the only trick. Our ancient relatives didn't just fight bacteria, they partnered with it. Inside every human gut lives a teeming universe of microbes, trillions of bacteria, fungi, and other life forms. Today we call it the gut microbiome, and it's crucial for everything from digestion to mood. But in the past, it was a survival mechanism. When early humans ate rotting meat, they weren't just ingesting calories. They were ingesting an army of microbes that could digest what we couldn't. Some bacteria specialize in breaking down tough proteins, fats, or collagen, things our stomach acid alone couldn't tackle. Over time, these bacteria took root in our gut. They help digest food, extract nutrients, and even protect us from harmful invaders. Think of it like this. We outsourced digestion to microbes. They fed off our food scraps, and in return, they helped us survive. Modern hunter-gatherer tribes still show this pattern. The Hadza of Tanzania, for example, have gut microbiomes far more diverse than modern humans. Why? Because their diet includes everything: roots, raw meat, fermented plants, and yes, aged animal flesh. Their stomachs are bacterial jungles, perfectly tuned to handle microbial meals. We've lost that. With processed foods, antibiotics, and sterile environments, modern guts are weaker, less diverse, more reactive. That's why eating even slightly off meat can make us sick today. But thousands of years ago, our guts were weapons. Our bacteria were battle-tested. The final piece of the puzzle? The immune system. With processed foods, antibiotics, and sterile environments, modern guts are weaker, less diverse, more reactive. That's why eating even slightly off meat can make us sick today. But thousands of years ago, our guts were weapons. Our bacteria were battle-tested. The final piece of the puzzle? The immune system. Eating rotting meat wasn't just about digestion. It was a constant war inside the body. Every bite brought foreign bacteria, possible parasites, and unknown pathogens. And yet somehow, early humans not only survived, they flourished. Scientists now believe their immune systems were incredibly adaptive. Constant exposure to dangerous microbes didn't kill them. It trained them. Like lifting weights strengthens muscles, constant microbial exposure hardened their immunity. This is called the hygiene hypothesis. It suggests that modern humans, living in ultra-clean environments, actually have weaker immune responses. Without exposure, the system gets lazy and even starts attacking itself. That's why autoimmune diseases are skyrocketing in modern cities. Meanwhile, the caveman's immune system, it was a frontline warrior, always alert, always learning, always updating its defenses. There's even evidence that certain populations, like the Denisovans or Neanderthals, passed on immune-related genes to modern humans. These genes helped early Homo sapiens deal with foreign bacteria, viruses, and maybe even tolerate the dangerous meals of survival. In short, their bodies were forged by filth, and yet it wasn't just brute strength, it was balance, the acid, the microbes, the immunity. Together, these formed a perfect biological machine, capable of handling rot, decay, and disease like no species before them. So the next time someone says they were just cavemen, remember this: they didn't just survive the wild, they adapted to eat death itself and walk away stronger. Rotting meat. To us, it screams desperation, like a starving man clawing for scraps. But to ancient humans, it was a calculated move. This wasn't random survival, it was strategy. Let's look at the world they lived in. Open savannas, forests crawling with predators, a climate that swung between feast and famine. In that kind of environment, you don't just stumble onto meat, you earn it. Fresh kills, rare and risky. Rotting meat, always available, if you're smart enough to take it. Some tribes didn't just scavenge what lions left behind. They followed predator patterns, tracking migrations and learning when and where animals died. In essence, they mapped death routes. They began showing up right after the lions finished eating, when the carcass was half gone but still rich in nutrients. Too rotten for the predator to care about anymore. Too dangerous for other animals to dare. But perfect timing for a human with a sharp stone. Evidence even suggests they preferred aged meat. Cut marks on ancient bones indicate butchering days after death. Not immediately. In some sites, bones were dragged to shelter and left to ripen. That's not desperation. That's food storage. So we have to ask, what if humans were the first species to understand the rhythm of rot? What if they didn't just react to nature, but worked with it? Because once you understand decay, you can control it. We often assume fire was humanity's first cooking tool. But long before flames danced in caves, early humans might have used a more ancient, invisible technique: fermentation. Fermentation is controlled rot. It's how we make cheese, yogurt, pickles, and even beer. And there's growing evidence that early humans may have stumbled onto this well before they understood fire. How? By burying meat. In colder climates, like Ice Age Europe, early humans stored meat in permafrost, essentially natural freezers. But in warmer regions, they buried it underground, sometimes in pits lined with leaves or ash. Over days or weeks, bacteria and enzymes began breaking down the meat. It became softer, easier to chew, sometimes even tastier. Sound disgusting? Today in Greenland, Inuit tribes still eat kiviak, a dish made by stuffing seabirds into a sealskin and letting them ferment for months. In parts of Africa, meat is buried under ash and left to age. In the Philippines, burong isda is fermented fish with rice. These practices aren't accidents. They're ancient food technology. It's very possible early humans discovered this unintentionally. A carcass left in a cool, shaded pit tasted better days later, easier to eat, didn't require tools or fire. Over time, it became routine. And with this discovery came power. Fermented meat lasted longer, didn't require hunting every day, and reduced the competition. No other predator wanted it. That gave humans freedom, freedom to move, plan, build culture. So maybe the first cooking wasn't fire-crackling mammoth steak. Maybe it was slimy, aged zebra loin pulled from the earth. There's one final piece that turns this story from survival into evolution: how strategy shaped the species. Scavenging wasn't just about eating, it changed everything. It changed our brains, our bodies, our tools, even our culture. Let's start with the brain. Scavenging required memory: where the lions killed last month, how long meat took to spoil, where water was nearby. It required risk assessment, timing, and spatial awareness. That kind of survival didn't reward brute strength, it rewarded cleverness. And cleverness is what grew the brain. Anthropologists call this the expensive tissue hypothesis. As humans ate more calorie-rich animal fat, from bone marrow and old meat, they needed less energy for digestion and more for brain development. Rot fed the mind. Then there's the body. Scavenging led to changes in our hands: finer grip for tools, better coordination. It also altered our metabolism. Eating irregularly, often nutrient-dense but bacteria-loaded food, shaped a digestive system designed to handle chaos. And finally, it shaped community. Rotting meat can't be hoarded long. You either eat it together or lose it. That created group meals, sharing rituals, and early forms of social bonding. Maybe even the first rules: who eats first, who gets the marrow, who guards the site. Rot demanded structure, so scavenging didn't just feed the body, it forged the tribe. When we think of innovation, we picture fire, wheels, language. But maybe the first genius move wasn't invention. Maybe it was recognition that the leftovers of nature held the key to power. In the end, our ancestors didn't just eat what others discarded. They built a species from it. The image is burned into pop culture: a caveman, wild hair, club in one hand, tearing into a slab of meat with the other. But that picture, it's a myth. Yes, early humans ate meat, but they weren't obsessed with it. And they certainly weren't eating fresh steak every day. Archaeological evidence shows something far more complex: a diet built on opportunity, not preference. Roots, tubers, nuts, insects, fermented fruits, bone marrow, occasional meat, often rotten. In fact, plants were the backbone of most diets. Grinding stones show traces of seeds and grains. Charred root vegetables have been found in ancient hearths. And even Neanderthal dental plaque shows microscopic plant matter, from moss to medicinal herbs. So why the meat-obsessed stereotype? Because bones survive better than berries. Fossils preserve the dramatic, not the daily routine. And let's not forget, Meat wasn't evenly shared. A kill, when it happened, was a chaotic social event. Who got what? Who fought for the marrow? The drama was real, but rare. The real story is this. Early humans ate whatever kept them alive. And most of the time, that wasn't meat. It was whatever they could find, ferment, or dig up. If anything, the true caveman wasn't defined by diet. He was defined by adaptation. He was a scavenger when he had to be, a forager when it made sense, a hunter only when the odds were right. He followed vultures, he cracked bones with rocks, he buried meat to let it rot just right. That's not mindless savagery, that's strategic evolution. And perhaps the most shocking truth? There's even evidence of cannibalism. In some caves, human bones show the same cut marks as deer: marrow extraction, skull breaking, defleshing. Was it survival? Ritual? We may never know. But one thing's clear: the caveman wasn't a brute. He was a survivor, a chemist, a microbiologist, a strategist. And maybe, just maybe, the future of our species was built not on fire and fury, but on rotting flesh, broken bones, and the brilliance to see food where others saw filth.